picked a good day to listen to the radio. I wish I was listening to this show right now. We got some good stuff. Stephen Johnson is on the phone. He's written a book called How We Got to Now, celebrating the history and power of great ideas. We live in a place that, well, I guess it's a matter of opinion, but I think a lot of people probably would not live here in Florida if it wasn't for the invention of the air conditioner, right?
Right.
That's got to be part of how we ended up having so many people living in Florida. But that's just one thing. There's so many different things. When you, and every once in a while somebody will say, "What do you think is the greatest invention of all time?" You know, do you think it's plastic? I mean, it's something that other things were made out of, or anything like that. And of course, you could say something modern like the iPad or something like that. Stephen Johnson has this book, and this is one that you're going to start reading and not stop reading, and you're going to wish there was more. It says here he's a best-selling pop science author. Pop science? What the heck does that mean? Pop science.
A lot of fun, I think.
He's the host of the PBS series How We Got to Now, and he's on the phone. It's an honor to say good morning. Stephen Johnson. Good morning, Stephen.
Hey, how's it going?
Pretty good. Where are you?
I'm actually at my parents' house in Washington, D.C. We did a PBS event here last night, and both Washington, D.C. and Florida benefited from the invention of air conditioning.
Even D.C., huh? We probably wouldn't move any further south than Delaware, probably, if it wasn't for the air conditioning. So can I ask a question before we get to what was invented? Why are things invented? It seems like there was a whole load of stuff invented at a certain time, and I often wondered why.
Yeah, well, it's a really interesting thing that happens again and again in the history of invention, which is that it's sometimes called simultaneous invention or simultaneous discovery. This happens with science, too, where you will see suddenly, at a certain moment in history, 20 people around the world will discover or invent the same thing working independently.
Isn't that strange?
So
yeah.
About 20 people invented the light bulb kind of before Edison invented the light bulb. And what happens is, as technology advances and as science advances, and to some extent it's kind of industrial technology and business advance, certain ideas become imaginable at a certain moment in time that just you couldn't even dream of them. However smart you were, you couldn't invent air conditioning in 1600. There were just too many basic understandings of the world that we didn't have access to. But you hit a certain point, and suddenly it's as if this new thing comes into focus, and all of a sudden everyone independently kind of hits on that idea. So that happens again and again in the history of new ideas.
Now, one of the arguments that, I don't know if argument is the right word, but one of the points that some people will make is that inventions happen when somebody can benefit from them. So the advent of an idea called a patent, which, I mean, you mentioned Edison, wasn't that the reason we point to him, even though other people invented it, was because he was the first one with the patent?
Well, actually, there were other patents. He actually bought a lot of the patents.
Oh, really?
Went up and kind of bought them. What Edison did is he basically invented the system around the light bulb. So there were many working light bulbs. They didn't last as long as Edison's did, but they had the basic model, the vacuum tube with some kind of filament that burns and so on. But for a light bulb to work, you need to attach it to an electrical grid of some kind, and you have to have a metering system to be able to charge people for the electricity that's going to their light bulb. And so he was brilliant, and he had a brilliant team. He had a very kind of interesting, diverse, eclectic team of people that he worked with. They called themselves the Muckers, and together they really created this system, not a single thing, but a system, and that's what was ultimately successful. So he's an important part of the story, but it's not the way every school kid hears it. Like, in 1878, Thomas Edison invented the light bulb.
So the book is more than this, but let's talk about the subtitle: 6 Innovations That Made the Modern World. One of them is ice?
Cold, yeah. Cold. I mean, it begins with ice. So and ends with air conditioning, really. There's this crazy guy named Frederick Tudor who was a Bostonian born at the turn of the beginning around 1800, or he was a kind of teenager at 1800. And he got obsessed with this idea, partially from visiting the South, that he could take frozen lake water, cut it up into big blocks of ice, and ship it down to the southern states and to the Caribbean. And he would be able to sell something that was effectively free that you could just extract from these lakes for the cost of like cheap labor.
Right.
Be able to sell it in these places. I mean, you think about it in 1800, if you lived in in Jamaica or something, you have never seen ice in your whole life. It's never been that cold, and it doesn't, there's no way to artificially make it. And so he was like, people will pay, it'll be like gold, it'll show up and people will be amazed. And he was obsessed with this idea, and he went through a lot of kind of innovation to try and figure out how to keep the ice from melting.
Yeah.
As you carry ships, which you would think it would melt immediately, but if you prepare it properly and you get these big blocks of ice, it'll survive. And eventually he was able to ship it all the way to India and to Rio without it melting, which is amazing. But his biggest problem was when he showed up with big blocks of ice that hadn't melted in these places, no one knew what to do with it. People were like, I don't care. Why do I need ice? We've been living here for thousands of years with no ice. What's the deal?
Yeah.
And so he had to convince them that, ice cream and an ice-cooled drink and an ice bath on a hot summer day was refreshing.
And I heard...
And eventually succeeded.
Go ahead. Well, I was going to say, I had heard, this is just me, that ice cream was something only kings had because the ice cream makers were employed by the king, and they had to go up into the mountains to make it where there was ice.
So many of modern, not luxuries anymore, but just things that we take for granted were things 200 years ago that only the 1% aristocracy could enjoy. It's an amazing part of it, and ice is one of those things. So and that eventually then leads to air conditioning as people realize that there's a market for making things cold, and so people invent refrigeration and then invent air conditioning, and this is a big theme of the book, is these kind of crazy unintended consequences of an innovation like air conditioning. Air conditioning gets invented, and then after World War II, as home AC units begin to become popular, there's this massive, really the single biggest migration of human beings in the history of the United States to the south and to the Sun Belt. Florida had some people, but it was, it grew tremendously after the war. Arizona and Nevada, which had no people, developed cities like Phoenix and Vegas.
Isn't that amazing? Our parents, Robin's parents and my parents, would remember. Of course, my parents are gone, but Robin's mom is still here, and they would remember ice boxes. Whereas I'm too young to remember ice box. But even just one generation before us, and we're 60s, so that gives you an idea how far we go back. But we were hearing about ice boxes from our parents.
We just moved into a new place in Brooklyn that's an old brownstone that was built in 1880, and there is still an ice box.
Is that right? Oh, wow.
But you can see a little thing saying, like, it's got the brand of the ice company that would deliver ice there. I've used it now. It's my little wine cellar.
You also give way to the misconceptions of who the people are that invent these type of things. Most people think that they're all scientists and they're people locked up in rooms, but you run the gamut from like actors inventing things.
Yeah. It's just there's so many interesting characters. We really spent a lot of time trying to find the great people. And Hedy Lamarr, who was this Hollywood superstar in the late 30s and 40s and all these movies, and she had this like side career as an inventor, and she collaborated with this this avant-garde music composer. This is unlikely pairing in the history of invention, and it was during World War II, and she wanted to support the Allied cause, and so they came up with this wireless encryption scheme called frequency hopping, which was a way of sending a signal from, say, a plane or a submarine to a guided missile of some sort that couldn't be kind of cracked or jammed by the enemy. And they gave it to the military, and they actually looked at it. They didn't implement it directly at the time, but that technology of frequency hopping is now used today in like Bluetooth and Wi-Fi and a lot of the kind of secure wireless communications that we have. And it all came from this. Like,
that is awesome. A music composer and an actress. That is so cool.
It is. I mean, just a musical instrument. Look at the piano. I mean, who would have thought? You know what? With just they probably spent a whole year making some of the pianos in the beginning. You have to get the wire and everything. Wow.
Yeah.
And then you hit this kind of interesting where there's a lot of tinkering around with what the instrument should be, and then you get to an agreement on what a piano is, and then pretty much it stops. we're still using designs that were pretty much finalized in 1650.
Well, and even the separation of the notes. I mean, obviously, what we call the difference between a C and a C sharp, which is the smallest increment you can have in music, is really not the smallest increment in nature. I mean, you could have a smaller increment than that.
Mm-hmm.
A slide trombone is able to do the smaller increments. This is fascinating. I can't.
Well, actually, go on.
Well, we just need to take a little break because we have a weather report, which is a good invention. But we'll take a little break and we'll be right back. I love this topic. I wish there were no weather breaks, but we have to do this.
It's great.
Part of what we do. How we got to now. Stephen Johnson will be right back after this.
The weather is brought to you by myfwc.com. Safe boating is no accident. It'll be partly sunny and very warm today with a shower and thunderstorm around this afternoon, the high 86 to 90. Partly to mostly cloudy tonight with a shower or thunderstorm around, those 70 to 74. For tomorrow, variable cloudiness and not as warm with a shower or thunderstorm through the early afternoon hours, the high 81 to 85. For Sunday, mostly sunny and comfortable, highs in the 70s. From the Florida Weather Center, I'm meteorologist Joe Lundberg.
This weather brought to you by OcalaForSale.com, where you too can be a sellout. Give them a call at 629-1663 or just go to OcalaForSale.com.
Hi, folks. Jim Lally from the Mortgage Center. I want to talk to you about WOCA and radio. Radio advertising works, folks. 3 shows, an Atomic Area Real Estate Hour, produce 15 calls for us, and it'll work for you. So if you've thought about it, get off the fence, make the decision. WOCA, radio advertising works. Call us.
WOCA. Get it for less at the DIY Home Center outlet. Get top quality real wood cabinets the same or less than the big box stores are selling the cheap stuff. And that's not all. Drywall screws big box stores are $6.47 a pound. At DIY, only $4.99. Plus, DIY has the largest selection of mobile home parts and accessories anywhere. From carpet to doors, get the DIY supplies you need for less. The DIY Home Center outlet. We are your building material closeout store. 2191 Northwest 10th Street, just 2 miles east of I-75.
All right, 19 minutes after 11 o'clock. And, okay, fascinating topic. We are talking about things that got invented. We were talking about musical instruments before we took the break. And I was thinking during the break about, like you break a guitar string, right? You go to the guitar center, whatever, and you get a new set of strings. I mean, where did they get strings from back? They always call it cat. That's what they said, cat.
That's right.
So they got to kill another cat. Got a string. And how do you know? I mean, how do you get the thick ones and the thin ones? And wow, this is a fascinating subject, Stephen. You're going to have to write 100 more books, I think.
Yeah. Well, it is fun. I was thinking about guitars and things breaking. There's a story we tell in the book, and it's also going to be a PBS show airing in just 2 weeks, actually, next Wednesday, October 15th. So there's a show and a book. But the story we tell in the show and in the book is about the vacuum tube. So they invent the vacuum tube, which is central to radio and a whole host of other things.
Right.
And anything that's amplifying. And people use it to amplify music. And so guitarists are playing their amps that are vacuum tube basically powered. And at some point, people notice that, like, if you overdrive the vacuum tube, or if the vacuum tube breaks for some reason, you get this distorted sound. And for years, musicians heard that sound of distortion, and they were like, oh, my amp is broken, or I should turn down my guitar because it's distorted, it's not working properly. And then eventually, starting in the 50s, and then particularly in the 60s, people started to say, I kind of like that sound.
I like that sound, yeah. I think we blame Peter Townsend for that, the Who.
And you take something, a technology that is like deliberately broken, and we develop an ear for it. We develop a kind of, it doesn't sound like noise. It actually sounds like music to our ears now, and it comes out of a technology malfunctioning. Isn't
that funny? And now they have computer programs to emulate that broken sound. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Well, obviously the computer is an invention, but the computer is the result of many inventions. Correct?
Yeah, the computers and programming and other new technology, GPS and things like that shows up in the book and in the show, but we really wanted to have it be a history of things that we think of as being low tech, and not things that we obviously think of as being technology. So a lot of the ideas ultimately kind of led to computers. Like one of the things, we have an episode and a show and a chapter about clean drinking water. And you think of that in terms of, okay, we have clean drinking water. That was really important. We don't die of cholera when we drink water out of tap. That's a thing, and that's a big part of it. But also, if you go to a chip fabrication plant where they make microchips that are in your iPhone and your computer, they use what they call ultra clean water to get all the kind of dust off of these chips. And the water is so clean, it's pure H2O. It's so clean that it's not safe to drink, which is bizarre. Normal drinking water has minerals in it that our body needs, but this water is completely pure, and you need it to be able to make microchips. So you don't think about water and the ability to purify water as being central to the technology revolution, but it is.
Oh, wow. Yeah, I had no idea.
And then you take it one step further, you talk about the chlorinated water, and then you delve into women's fashion.
Yeah, exactly. People start, after you chlorinate water, which starts at the beginning of the 20th century, again, an amazing increase in public health. It reduces infant mortality and child mortality by 50% in just 30 years, which is amazing. But it means that pools are safe to swim in now for the first time. And so all these public pools get built in the 20s and 30s. And people learned to swim for the first time. Swimming was not a skill that most people had until this. And that ends up leading, because people start going to these pools, fashion trends start to kind of spread through the population in terms of swimwear. And if you've gone to like a beach in 1900, the women would all be dressed up like they were going for a sleigh ride.
Right.
But because these kind of trends in fashion start to flow through, there's this tremendous change in just the size of women's bathing trunks, bathing suits in that period. And we think about women's fashion as being all about, Hollywood or glossy magazines, but in fact, the introduction of chlorine into drinking water in public pools.
That is fascinating.
Part of that story.
Can you tell me, because I didn't get to this part of the book yet, what is the swinging altar lamp inside the Duomo of Pisa? What is that?
So when Galileo was like a 19-year-old, he was in the cathedral, and everybody else is sitting there, reciting the Lord's Prayer or something like that. And he notices that this altar lamp is swinging back and forth, and he notices this weird thing where no matter how, it never changes how long it takes for it to complete a swing. If it's a big, wide pendulum, it goes faster, and if it's not as big a kind of swing, then it goes slower. And so he actually notices this, and he measures it against his pulse to confirm that it's keeping a perfect kind of pace. And so that plants a seed in his mind. And of course, he's Galileo, so this is the kind of thing he's thinking of as a 19-year-old start doing. And it's not for another 50 years that he finally takes that idea and he builds a design for the first pendulum clock, which is the first really accurate form of timekeeping, which then it becomes the basis for the what was called the chronometer, which was central for solving the problem of longitude, and it really enables people to sail around the world and know where they are for the first time. So
that is amazing. And he used his pulse.
It's central to navigation in this weird way.
And he used his
all
pulse.
Comes from Galileo. Yeah.
What about the magnifying glass as a telescope, as a microscope, all those things?
Well, it's just part of the story of why glass is so important. And
glass, okay.
Those things came out of Gutenberg. So Gutenberg invents the printing press. Everyone starts to read. This is a familiar story. The book is this revolutionary new technology. But what no one ever talks about is that once books became popular and people started to read, they all of a sudden noticed that they needed reading glasses. They were farsighted. And they couldn't, no one had noticed this before because they didn't have any occasion to look at tiny little objects right in front of their face. And so then all of a sudden there are all these lens makers who are making spectacles for the first time, and they start experimenting with their lenses, and through that experimentation they make the telescope and the microscope, which triggers partially Galileo's revolutions in astronomy and science and biology.
So much of what we know is because we can see really small things and really far away things.
Yeah.
And that also allowed them to have a chemist come on the scene then, because then they're just taking things apart that normally people wouldn't take apart and have all these excretions, and then they make new things through the use of the natural chemicals.
Yeah, exactly. And in fact, chlorinating water, that whole project began because they had very good microscopes that finally allowed them to see bacteria, which are very small and very hard to see. And once they knew there was bacteria in the water, they started thinking about how they could use chemicals to kill those bacteria. And that's
Do you know
all
what
really connected.
Do you know what I've often thought was fascinating? If you think about an artist and how he takes paint and makes a new color out of mixing two colors, and then you look at how those primary colors of paint are not the same primary colors of light, how did anybody figure this out?
Oh, good question.
In order to make like a color TV or anything that we use now like that, how did they figure this out? I just don't understand. I mean, you can mix paint, but how did they learn to mix light?
Yeah.
That'll have to be another episode.
So throughout all of your research and things, have you ever wondered about something and then you discovered something on your own?
Well, I've done a couple of tech startups over the years. I started one of the first, actually the first online magazine, which is called Feed, back in 1995. It's the first web-based magazine before blogs and Twitter and all that kind of stuff.
Oh.
So I've kind of bounced back and forth between, kind of doing new things with communications technologies, mostly with the web, and then writing about the history of innovation, which is fun. Is you get to kind of live in both worlds. You get to create things, but also like discover things in the past.
Well, do you mind if I brag? I did discover something. I wouldn't mind sharing it with you. I've heard it said that there are no coincidences, and I discovered the one actual coincidence, because I don't believe this applies, that there are no coincidences. The brain is 18 inches away from the stomach. Mm-hmm. The same as a large pizza. I think that is a coincidence.
There's a Nobel in your future.
This is a great book, and I love this conversation. And I want to give it. Well, no, I'm not sure. I don't want to give away the book, but I will give away the book. It is called "How We Got to Now: Celebrating the History and Power of Great Ideas: 6 Innovations That Made the Modern World." I will give this hardcover book away, filled with photographs, by the way.
It is wonderful.
Written by Stephen Johnson. Call me if you want the one I have. And then Stephen's going to tell us how we can go buy it. Let me give this one away first. Good morning. You've got the book. Who's this?
Hey, this is Bill.
Bill, do you know where we are?
Yeah, you're in the mall now, right?
We're in the mall, right by the outside of the food court, not inside the mall.
Right, yeah.
Okay, you got it. It'll be. What's the first letter of your last name?
C.
C?
C. Uh-huh.
Okay, you got it, Bill.
Great, thanks, Larry.
Thank you. Stephen, do you have a website?
Yeah, Stephen Berlin Johnson, and also we have a great website to kind of companion for the show with new innovations for profiling at howwegettonext.com.
Oh, really?
Oh, nice.
Okay, and I got to check out the PBS show. Is it online? Can I watch it online?
It will be, and it's airing October 15th at 9 p.m. For special 2-hour premiere, and then Wednesdays at 10 after that.
Oh,
well,
nice.
Good luck with everything you're doing. You have hit on a topic that I think everybody is going to love. Stephen, thank you for being on the show with us today. Have a great weekend.
My pleasure. Thanks, guys.
All right, we'll be right back.
Fox News Radio, I'm Lillian Wu, an NBC freelance cameraman who tested positive for Ebola heading to the U.S. for treatment. The team he was with will be isolated. Meanwhile, more details on Thomas Duncan, the Liberian man who's being treated in Texas. He was asked on a questionnaire whether he had any contact with an Ebola patient.
Authorities say that on that question, Mr. Duncan answered no. And because at the time he displayed no fever, showed no outward symptoms of Ebola, he was allowed to board the plane and consequently made it to Dallas, Texas before he became ill.
Fox's Jonathan Sari. The September jobs report out showing unemployment falling to 5.9%.
But there are some caveats to that. For example, the unemployment rate fell for a couple of reasons. Yeah, more people found work, but there's also fewer people actually in the labor market looking for a job, and that's not a good thing.
Fox Business Network's Rich Edson, Fox News. We report, you decide.
Wow, is that an angry monkey screaming at you? Nope, it's your windshield wipers. And they're literally crying out for you to replace them. Lucky for you, Napa now has 30% off select visibility products. That's 30% off wiper blades, headlight bulbs, and more. So cut all the monkey business and conquer the job with Napa Know-How. At participating Napa Auto Parts stores while supplies last. Offer expires 10/31/14.
What's the secret to great business trips? Choice Hotels, where you'll find everything a business traveler needs, like a generous rewards program. And right now, when you take 2 separate trips at Comfort Inn or any Choice Hotel, you can earn 1 night free. Stay for business at Choice Hotels and book now at choicehotels.com. Great endings begin here. Free night based on an 8,000-point Choice Privileges reward night at over 1,500 hotels. Valid 9/4/14 through 11/12/14. Requires registration and 2 separate qualifying stays. Other terms and conditions apply. Details at choicehotels.com.
Hospice of Marion County has an urgent need for volunteers to share a conversation with someone, run errands, hold someone's hand. All you need is a willingness to help others. Our volunteers believe the blessings they receive far exceed the services they offer. Will you consider serving, caring, and making a difference? Call today, 873-7441. Hospice of Marion County, making more moments of life possible.
Special Olympics of Marion County is holding 2 fundraising events that will delight NFL fans.
Miami Dolphins running back Don Nottingham, also known as the Human Bowling Ball, has announced that over a dozen of his NFL buddies will be participating in 2 Special Olympics fundraisers in Marion County.
The first is on Friday, October 3rd from 6 till 10 p.m. at Jumbo Lair.
It's a dinner complete with an open bar and decadent desserts and an opportunity to chat and hang out with some of professional football's biggest stars.
Then on Saturday, October 4th, the NFL champions will play golf at a tournament in Silver Spring Shores with an after-game bash with fans at the 19th hole.
To learn more or to get tickets for either event, call Maria Roman at 352-462-0380.
This message brought to you by your friends here at The Source, WOCA. Here are today's headlines from The Source, WOCA. A suburban West Palm Beach man put a 2-year-old child in a laundry dryer and was arrested on the charge of aggravated child abuse. Christian Echeverria, who is 27 years old, was arrested Wednesday by Palm Beach County Sheriff's deputies. According to an arrest report, Echeverria was caring for the Royal Palm Beach boy the night of September 19th. At one point in the evening, another person at the house heard crying coming from the dryer, but was told by Echeverria that nothing was in there. The person opened the door of the dryer only to find the child in there crying. The person told deputies the dryer was not on at the time. An investigation began when a caregiver discovered that the boy had several bruises when she picked him up on September 20th. The boy was taken to a Wellington hospital and held for observation for 2 days. A doctor noted that the boy's bruises appeared to be inflicted injuries. Echeverria remains in the Palm Beach County Jail in lieu of a $25,000 bond. Wildwood police and fire officials cordoned off a 350-foot perimeter around its school and other nearby areas yesterday afternoon after a 750-pound tank at Suburban Propane sprung a leak. No evacuations were ordered, but Wildwood middle and high school students were locked down. School buses as well as other traffic around the Main Street propane business were still being rerouted at 4:30 p.m. yesterday as officials tried to cap the leak, according to Police Captain Paul Valentino, who remained on the scene. Valentino said a maintenance worker was doing some work on the tank at about 1:30 p.m. when it started leaking. Valentino added that it isn't clear how long it will take to fix the tank, but it is a slow leak and officials do not believe it poses any danger to residents. According to its website, Suburban markets and distributes a diverse array of products specializing in propane, fuel, and refined fuels. Suburban maintains operations in 41 states, including 5 other similar facilities in Florida. Central Florida's STEM Alliance is recognizing 19 students and 3 teachers, all from Marion County Public Schools, for achievements in math and science, formerly known as the PRISM Awards, with PRISM standing for Promoting Regional Improvement in Math and Science. These cash awards spotlight teachers and students for their commitment to learning, specifically in the math and science fields. This year's Marion County STEM Alliance teachers include Vicki Ambrose, a science teacher at Dr. N.H. Jones Elementary, Sandra Crusher, a science teacher at Liberty Middle, and John Jacobs, a math teacher at North Marion High School. These teachers each receive a $250 check and crystal engraved award. Student cash prizes range from $25 to $100. Marion County students and teachers will be recognized at the October 28th Marion County School Board meeting here in Ocala. Working smoke alarms save lives. Test yours every month. This is the message Ocala Fire Rescue and the National Fire Protection Association will be sharing with the community during the month of October, the month during which Fire Prevention Week, October 5th through 11th, is celebrated. Like other alarms, smoke alarms are such a common item in American homes that their functioning is often taken for granted, leaving the homeowners with a false sense of security. It is a fact that working smoke alarms cut the risk of dying in home fires in half. However, proper maintenance and upkeep of the alarms is absolutely essential. This month, Ocala Fire Rescue will be visiting local schools to promote working smoke alarms save lives in an attempt to inform children about the importance of smoke alarms and the roles these play in the home. To obtain a complimentary smoke alarm and installation of it, please contact Ocala Fire Rescue at 629-8306. And those are the headlines from the source, WOCA 96.3 FM and 1370 AM.
The weather is brought to you by myfwc.com. Safe boating is no accident. It'll be partly sunny and very warm today with a shower and thunderstorm around this afternoon, the high 86 to 90. Partly to mostly cloudy tonight with a shower or thunderstorm around, those 70 to 74. For tomorrow, variable cloudiness and not as warm with a shower or thunderstorm through the early afternoon hours, the high 81 to 85. For Sunday, mostly sunny and comfortable. Highs in the 70s. From the Florida Weather Center, I'm meteorologist Joe Lundberg.
Who would you feed if you had 50 chicken sandwiches from Chick-fil-A? WOCA and Chick-fil-A in the Paddock Mall have teamed up to reward one organization with 50 chicken sandwiches as a way of saying thanks for the great work that organization is doing in our community. And we need your help. See, there are so many great people doing great things that we need nominations. You can nominate your own organization or any organization you choose. Simply send an email to WOCA@WOCA.com. And in 350 words or less, tell us why the organization you are nominating should receive 50 free chicken sandwiches from WOCA and Chick-fil-A at the Paddock Mall. We'll review your nominations and then select one deserving organization each month. We'll announce the winner and even read the winning